The champagne tower glittered like frozen fire under the crystal chandeliers, and somewhere between the orchestra's haunting waltz and the countdown to midnight, a woman with silver-threaded hair and eyes that had seen empires rise and fall leaned close to her ear. "Pretend you're my son's fiancé," she whispered, her grip gentle but unyielding on Ariana's wrist. "Just for tonight. Please." The request was absurd, impossible, but the desperation in those elegant features made refusal feel like cruelty. And when Ariana's gaze lifted across the glittering ballroom to find the man in question, she understood that some moments don't ask for permission. They simply rewrite your fate. Thank you for joining the story. Please like, share, and subscribe. Ariana hadn't planned to attend the New Year's Eve Gala at all. The invitation had arrived 3 weeks earlier, forwarded by her employer, a prestigious art authentication firm that occasionally sent her to evaluate private collections. This particular client, the Santini family, owned half of Milan's commercial district and maintained a reputation so pristine it seemed deliberately polished. She'd accepted because refusing felt professionally suicidal, not because she belonged in ballrooms where champagne cost more than her monthly rent. Now she stood frozen beside Elena Santini, matriarch of the family, trying to process the woman's impossible request. "I don't understand," Ariana managed, her voice barely audible over the string quartet. "Why would you need me to?" "Because my son is being hunted," Elena interrupted softly, her composure never cracking despite the gravity of her words. "Not with guns or knives, but with ambition disguised as romance. 3 women here tonight have family ties to organizations that would see our empire absorbed or destroyed. If Raphael appears unattached, one of them will make her move before midnight." Ariana's pulse accelerated. "And you think a fake fiancé will stop them?" "I think you're the only woman in this room who doesn't want anything from him." Elena's grip tightened fractionally. "I've been watching you since you arrived. How you examine the art instead of the people, how you declined advances from 2 different men without cruelty. You're not here to climb social ladders." "I'm here to work," Ariana said quietly. "To authenticate your Caravaggio." "Exactly." Elena's smile held profound relief. "Which makes you perfect. Just stand beside him during the countdown, let people assume what they will. After tonight, you'll never see us again. I'll double your firm's fee." Before Ariana could respond, the crowd shifted, and she saw him. Raphael Santini moved through the ballroom like gravity itself had rearranged to accommodate him. He wasn't the tallest man present or the loudest, but every conversation seemed to pause fractionally as he passed, heads turning with the instinctive awareness prey develops for predators. His tuxedo fit with the precision of wealth so old it no longer needed to announce itself, and his face, sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, eyes so dark they appeared black under the chandelier light, carried the kind of masculine beauty that felt almost dangerous. He was also walking directly toward them. "Too late to refuse," Elena murmured, then raised her voice with perfect maternal warmth. "Raphael, darling, I was just telling Ariana how much you've been looking forward to meeting her." Those black eyes fixed on Ariana with an intensity that made her breath catch. Up close, Raphael Santini was even more unsettling, not because he projected menace, but because he didn't. His expression remained perfectly neutral, politely interested, yet she felt studied with the thoroughness of someone who missed nothing. "Miss Greco." His voice matched his appearance, smooth, controlled, with an accent that shaped vowels like carved marble. "My mother mentioned you were authenticating our Caravaggio. I hope you found our collection worthy of your expertise." "It's extraordinary," Ariana replied, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Though I haven't finished my assessment. Then you'll need to return." It wasn't a question. Raphael's gaze hadn't wavered from her face, and Ariana felt heat creep up her neck under that unwavering attention. "Perhaps we could discuss the pieces over dinner. Tomorrow evening?" Elena touched her son's arm lightly. "Raphael, don't monopolize her time." Though I'm sure Ariana wouldn't mind considering. She trailed off meaningfully, and Ariana realized with sinking certainty that Elena was executing her plan in real time, crafting implications from thin air. Raphael's expression shifted almost imperceptibly, a slight narrowing of his eyes, a fractional tilt of his head. He was reading the subtext, analyzing his mother's unusual behavior. When his gaze returned to Ariana, something new flickered in those dark depths. Recognition, understanding, and something else entirely. Considering, he prompted softly, his focus still locked on Ariana rather than his mother. The air felt suddenly thin. Ariana opened her mouth, unsure whether to confirm or deny the fabrication, when a voice interrupted from behind Raphael. "Santini, there you are. I've been looking everywhere." The woman who appeared at Raphael's shoulder was stunning in the way that required team effort, professional makeup, designer gown, jewelry that caught light like tiny supernovas. But her smile, while dazzling, never quite reached her calculating eyes. "Bianca." Raphael's tone cooled by several degrees. "I didn't realize you were attending. Father received an invitation last week." Bianca's gaze slid to Ariana with thinly veiled assessment. "And who is this?" Elena answered before anyone else could. "This is Ariana Greco, Raphael's fiancée. Though they've been keeping quiet, you know how my son values his privacy." The lie landed like a stone in still water, ripples spreading outward. Bianca's smile froze. Raphael went completely still beside Ariana, his silence suddenly thunderous. And Ariana felt the floor tilt beneath her feet as the fabrication became public, irrevocable. "Fiancé," Bianca repeated, her voice suggesting she was tasting something bitter. "How unexpected." "Raphael, you didn't mention." "We prefer discretion." Raphael's hand moved to the small of Ariana's back, the touch light but possessive. His voice remained even, betraying nothing. "I hope you'll respect that, Bianca." It was dismissal wrapped in courtesy, and Bianca recognized it. Her jaw tightened fractionally before she recovered her social mask. "Of course. Congratulations to you both." She disappeared into the crowd with predatory grace, and Ariana became acutely aware of Raphael's hand still resting against her spine, his palm warm through the thin fabric of her dress. "We should talk," he said quietly, his tone utterly calm despite the chaos his mother had just created. "Somewhere private." Elena made a soft sound of protest. "Raphael, don't interrogate the poor girl. I asked her to help, and she agreed. You should be thanking her, not mother." Just one word, but it carried enough authority to silence even Elena Santini. Raphael's attention never left Ariana. "Please." It wasn't a request from a son to his mother. It was a command from someone accustomed to absolute obedience. Ariana should have refused. Should have apologized, extracted herself from this absurd situation, and returned to her hotel, where her biggest concern was whether the Caravaggio's provenance documentation was authentic. Instead, she found herself nodding, allowing Raphael to guide her through the ballroom with his hand still pressed against her back, the contact both protective and controlling. They passed through towering doorways into a corridor lined with Renaissance paintings worth more than small nations. Raphael remained silent until they reached a study paneled in dark wood, where floor-to-ceiling bookshelves suggested actual reading rather than decorative intellectualism. He closed the door, and the muffled sounds of the Gala faded to whispers. "I apologize for my mother," Raphael said, turning to face her. In the study's softer lighting, his features seemed less severe, but no less intense. "Elena believes subtlety is for people with less influence. She clearly decided you were the solution to a problem I didn't ask her to solve." "The women hunting you," Ariana replied, trying to sound more composed than she felt. She explained, "Though I'm not sure a fake engagement is the best." "It's not fake anymore." Raphael's interruption was matter-of-fact, almost clinical. "Bianca will have told a dozen people by now. By midnight, everyone at this gala will know. And tomorrow, their families will know." The reality of what Elena had done, what Ariana had allowed, crashed down with suffocating weight. "Then we'll issue a correction. Say there was a misunderstanding. That would make you look foolish and me look careless with your reputation." Raphael moved closer, and Ariana fought the urge to retreat. It would also accomplish nothing. The damage, as they say, is done. So, what do you suggest? Ariana hated how her voice wavered. That we just pretend to be engaged? For a few weeks, yes. Raphael's expression remained unreadable. Long enough that when we quietly end things, it appears mutual rather than scandalous. You'll be compensated, of course. Name your price. The offer should have been insulting, reducing her cooperation to a transaction. Instead, it felt almost respectful, acknowledging that her time and reputation held value. But something in Raphael's tone, in the way his dark eyes studied her face like he was memorizing every detail, suggested the arrangement might be more complicated than simple business. I don't want money, Ariana said carefully. I want this to end without destroying my professional credibility. Then we have aligned interests. Raphael extended his hand, formal and oddly old-fashioned. Do we have an agreement, Miss Greco? Ariana stared at his outstretched hand, recognizing the crossroads. Refusing meant public humiliation for them both, confirming the lie Elena had told and then immediately contradicting it. Accepting meant diving deeper into deception, tying herself to a man whose world operated by rules she didn't understand. But his hand remained steady, patient, and his eyes held something that looked almost like curiosity, as if he found her hesitation interesting rather than insulting. She clasped his hand. 6 weeks. Then we end it cleanly. 6 weeks, Raphael agreed. His grip was firm, warm, and he held on a fraction longer than necessary before releasing her. We should return to the gala before my absence becomes notable. And Miss Greco. Yes. You'll need to call me Raphael. Formality between fiancés would raise questions. The word, fiancés, sounded surreal in his measured tone, but Ariana nodded. Ariana, then. Something flickered across his face, too quick to identify. Ariana, he repeated, and somehow her name sounded different in his accent, shaped by vowels that made it feel less familiar and infinitely more intimate. They returned to the ballroom together, Raphael's hand once again settling against her lower back with that same possessive ease. The gala had grown more crowded as midnight approached, and Ariana felt dozens of eyes tracking their movement through the space. Whispers followed in their wake like ripples behind a boat. Elena appeared at their side almost immediately, her expression radiating satisfaction. There you are. The countdown starts in 10 minutes. You should be near the balcony for the fireworks. Mother enjoys spectacle, Raphael murmured near Ariana's ear, close enough that his breath stirred her hair. Fair warning. They positioned themselves near the massive balcony doors, where champagne flutes appeared in their hands with the efficiency of excellent staff work. Around them, conversations flowed with the careful casualness of people pretending not to stare while absolutely staring. A man approached, older, distinguished, with eyes that assessed Ariana with uncomfortable thoroughness. Santini, you've been holding out on us. Your fiancé is exquisite. Yes, Raphael replied with absolute finality, his arms sliding fully around Ariana's waist. She is. The possessiveness in his tone should have irritated her. Instead, it sent unexpected heat spiraling through her chest. The man departed with a knowing smile, and Ariana realized how close Raphael was holding her, his body a wall of warmth along her side. You're very convincing, she said quietly. So are you. His thumb traced a small, absent circle against her hip through the fabric of her dress, a gesture so casual it might have been unconscious, but it made her hyper-aware of every point where they touched. Though you're trembling. I'm nervous. This isn't exactly my usual social environment. Good. Ariana glanced up sharply. Good. Raphael's expression remained neutral, but his eyes held dark intensity. If you weren't nervous, I'd assume you did this sort of thing regularly. I prefer knowing you don't. Before Ariana could process that statement, the lights dimmed and a collective hush fell over the ballroom. The countdown began, voices rising in unison. 10, 9, 8. Raphael shifted, turning Ariana to face him fully. His hands settled on her waist with gentle firmness. 7, 6, 5. At midnight, he said softly, his face close enough that she could see gold flecks in his dark eyes. People will expect us to kiss.
4.
3. Ariana's heart hammered against her ribs. And
2.
I always meet expectations. His thumb brushed along her jaw, tilting her face upward. Trust me?
1.
The ballroom erupted in celebration. Champagne corks, cheers, the opening notes of Auld Lang Syne. But Ariana heard none of it. Because Raphael Santini was kissing her with a thoroughness that felt nothing like performance and everything like claim. His mouth moved against hers with controlled precision, one hand cradling her face while the other pressed her closer. The kiss was neither chaste nor explicit. It existed in some devastating middle ground that made her knees weak and her fingers curl into his lapels for balance. When he finally pulled back, his breathing had roughened fractionally, and his eyes held something fierce and wholly unexpected. "Happy New Year, Ariana," he murmured. Fireworks exploded outside, painting the ballroom in strobing colors, but Ariana barely noticed. Because she'd just made a catastrophic miscalculation. This wasn't going to be a simple arrangement, and Raphael Santini was far more dangerous than his reputation suggested. The rest of the gala passed in a surreal blur. Raphael kept Ariana close, his touch constant but never inappropriate, a hand at her back, fingers laced with hers, the occasional brush of his thumb against her wrist. To observers, they appeared perfectly natural together. But Ariana felt the careful control in every contact, the precise calculation behind gestures that seemed effortless. He was performing for their audience while simultaneously studying her reactions, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being evaluated by something far more predatory than simple interest. Near 2 in the morning, Elena approached with Ariana's coat. "You look exhausted, dear. Raphael, take her home." "I have a hotel room," Ariana protested. "I can get a taxi." Raphael's hand tightened fractionally on her waist. "My driver will take you. It's not safe for a woman alone at this hour." The statement was both chivalrous and autocratic, and Ariana recognized the futility of arguing. She also suspected Raphael's concern had less to do with general safety and more with maintaining control over the narrative they'd constructed. The drive to her hotel was silent. Raphael sat beside her in the back of a car that cost more than her entire year's salary, his attention fixed on his phone while somehow remaining acutely aware of her presence. Ariana studied the passing city lights and tried not to think about how his kiss had tasted like champagne and something darker, more addictive. When they arrived, Raphael escorted her to the lobby despite her protests. 6 weeks, he reminded her quietly, his hand catching hers before she could retreat. "Starting tomorrow, we'll need to be seen together regularly. Dinners, events, enough to make this believable." "I have work," Ariana said. "I can't just." "You're authenticating our collection. That gives you legitimate reason to be at the estate daily." His thumb traced across her knuckles, the touch absent and devastating. "We'll make it work, Ariana. Trust me." There was that word again.
Trust.
As if he had any right to ask for it. But when Raphael lifted her hand and pressed a kiss to her knuckles, old-fashioned, courtly, and somehow more intimate than their midnight kiss, Ariana felt her resistance crumbling. "Good night," he said softly, releasing her. "Sleep well." She didn't. Instead, Ariana spent the night staring at her ceiling, replaying every moment of the evening and trying to convince herself this was manageable. By morning, she'd almost succeeded. Then her phone rang. "Miss Greco?" The voice belonged to someone official, probably Raphael's assistant. "Mr. Santini has arranged for a car to collect you at 9. He'd like you to join him for breakfast before you begin work on the Caravaggio." Ariana glanced at her clock. 8:15. "That's not necessary," he insisted. "The car will arrive in 45 minutes. The line went dead before Ariana could protest further. She dressed in professional clothing, tailored trousers, a silk blouse, low heels, and tried to armor herself with confidence. But when the car arrived and delivered her to the Santini estate, breakfast with Raphael shredded every defense she'd constructed. He waited in a sunlit conservatory that overlooked manicured gardens, dressed casually in dark trousers and a white shirt with rolled sleeves. Without the formal tuxedo, He looked younger, though no less intense. Coffee steamed from delicate porcelain cups, and pastries arranged with artistic precision suggested a chef's involvement. "You came," Raphael observed, rising when she entered. "I wasn't certain you would. Your assistant didn't make it sound optional." A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. "Sophia has strong opinions about my schedule. Please sit." Ariana settled across from him, accepting coffee she didn't particularly want because it gave her hands something to do. "You said we needed to be seen together regularly. I assumed you meant public places." "I meant regularly," Raphael corrected gently. "Public and private. If we're engaged, you would spend time here. People will expect that. People are watching your house. People are always watching." He sipped his espresso with unhurried ease. "Not physically, perhaps, but information travels. Staff talk, visitors notice. If you only appear at formal events, it looks staged." The logic was sound, but Ariana felt the trap closing with each reasonable argument. "So, I'm supposed to just exist here? Pretend this is my life? For 6 weeks?" Raphael's gaze held hers steadily. "After that, you return to your actual life, compensated for the inconvenience. But during those 6 weeks, yes, this becomes partially your life." "And what exactly does that entail?" "Breakfasts like this. Dinners when my schedule permits. You'll work on the collection, which gives you legitimate presence. Occasionally, you'll attend events with me." He paused, studying her expression. "Nothing you're uncomfortable with, Ariana. I'm not asking you to share my bed or compromise your principles." The explicit clarification should have been reassuring. Instead, it made her acutely aware of the bedroom question's existence. "What if people ask about our relationship?" Ariana asked. "How we met, when we got engaged. We don't have a story." "We do now." Raphael produced a small velvet box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a ring that made Ariana's breath catch. The diamond was substantial but not ostentatious, set in platinum with smaller stones creating a delicate pattern. It looked antique, valuable, and utterly real. "I can't wear that," Ariana whispered. "You have to. An engagement without a ring raises questions." Raphael removed the ring from its box with careful precision. "This belonged to my grandmother. No one will question its authenticity or my intentions." He reached for her hand, and Ariana let him take it, too stunned to resist. The ring slid onto her finger with perfect, terrible ease, as if it had been made for her, as if this moment had been inevitable. "Our story," Raphael continued, his thumb tracing over the ring he'd just placed, "is simple. We met 2 months ago when you came to assess the collection. I was immediately interested. You were professionally resistant. I pursued. Eventually, you agreed to dinner. Things progressed quickly, because when you know, you know." The narrative was plausible, even romantic. But hearing Raphael recite it in his measured tone made it feel like a military briefing rather than a love story. "And the engagement?" Ariana prompted. "Last week. Private, just us. I proposed during a walk through the estate gardens because you mentioned loving the rose arbor." His eyes held hers with unsettling intensity. "You cried, happy tears, and said yes immediately. The detail about crying felt unnecessary, too specific." Ariana wondered if he was testing her, seeing if she'd object to the emotional manipulation inherent in the fabrication. "That's very thorough," she managed. "I don't do anything carelessly." Raphael released her hand, but continued watching her face. "If we're going to lie, we lie well enough that no one questions it. And after 6 weeks, what's our story for breaking up?" Something flickered across his expression, too quick to identify, gone before Ariana could analyze it. "We'll determine that when the time comes. For now, we focus on making this convincing." They ate breakfast in strange, almost comfortable silence. Raphael asked about her work, and Ariana found herself explaining the intricacies of authenticating old master paintings with more enthusiasm than she'd intended. He listened with genuine attention, asking intelligent questions that suggested actual interest rather than polite performance. By the time they finished, Ariana felt dangerously close to forgetting this was an arrangement rather than reality. Then Raphael's phone buzzed, and his expression shuddered instantly. "I need to handle something," he said, rising with fluid grace. "Marco will show you to the gallery where the Caravaggio is housed. Take whatever time you need." He was gone before Ariana could respond, disappearing through a doorway with the purposeful stride of someone handling urgent business. And despite herself, despite knowing this was temporary and transactional, Ariana felt the absence like cold water. She spent the morning examining the Caravaggio, a stunning Judith beheading Holofernes that showed the artist's characteristic dramatic lighting and brutal realism. The painting was authentic, though its provenance raised questions she'd need to investigate further. But her concentration kept fracturing, her thoughts returning to Raphael's carefully constructed lies and the ring weighing down her finger. Lunchtime arrived with another surprise. A staff member appeared with a tray of food and a handwritten note in strong, angular script.
Eat.
You'll need your strength for what comes next.
R.
The presumption should have annoyed her. Instead, Ariana smiled despite herself, recognizing the command disguised as concern. She was in serious trouble. Afternoon brought Raphael's return. He entered the gallery so quietly that Ariana didn't notice until he spoke from directly behind her. "What do you think?" She didn't jump, though her pulse accelerated traitorously. "It's authentic. Early 1600s, definitely Caravaggio's hand. But the documentation has gaps I'll need to research. Take whatever time necessary." Raphael moved to stand beside her, studying the painting with the focus of someone who understood art's value beyond mere investment. "My grandfather acquired this in 1962 from a private estate sale. The family was motivated to sell quickly. There was story in that careful phrasing, probably something involving debt or scandal." Ariana made a mental note to investigate the acquisition circumstances. "You appreciate art," she observed. "Most collectors just want the status." "Most collectors are idiots." Raphael's bluntness surprised her into a laugh, and something warm flickered in his eyes at the sound. "Art is history preserved, emotion captured. Reducing it to status symbols is insulting." Ariana turned to face him fully, studying the man behind the reputation. "You're not what I expected."
No.
He moved fractionally closer, and she caught his scent, something expensive and subtle, cedar and bergamot. "What did you expect?" "Someone colder. More ruthless." "I am ruthless, Ariana. Just not with you." The statement was matter-of-fact, almost casual, but it made her breath catch. "Not yet, anyway." Before she could process that ominous qualifier, Raphael's phone buzzed again. He glanced at the screen, and his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I need to leave for a few hours," he said, his tone shifting to something harder. "Business that can't wait. Marco will drive you back to your hotel whenever you're ready." "Is everything all right?" Raphael's expression suggested the question was naive, but his voice remained gentle. "Everything is manageable. That's all that matters." He left again, and this time Ariana felt certain the business he was handling had nothing to do with legitimate commerce. The Santini family's reputation was pristine, but no empire that size existed without carefully hidden darkness. She worked until early evening, then accepted Marco's offered ride back to her hotel. But as they drove through Milan streets, Ariana noticed they weren't alone. Another car maintained consistent distance behind them, not obviously following but too steady to be coincidental. Marco noticed her attention in the rearview mirror. "Mr. Santini's security," he explained calmly. "Standard protocol." "I need security." "You're wearing his grandmother's ring, miss. That makes you a target for people who want leverage against him." Marco's tone suggested this was obvious, unremarkable. "The team will remain discreet, but they'll be present whenever you're outside the estate." The reality of what she'd agreed to crystallized with cold clarity. This wasn't just play acting for social observers. She tied herself to a man whose world included threats, security details, and people who saw her as leverage. And despite her growing unease, despite recognizing the danger, Ariana touched the ring on her finger and felt something deeper than fear. She felt wanted, protected,
Claimed.
God help her, she liked it. That night, alone in her hotel room, Ariana's phone chimed with a message from an unknown number.
Sleep well.
Tomorrow we have dinner with the Morettis, old family friends who will ask intrusive questions. Prepare yourself.
R.
She stared at the message, at the casual command buried in apparent warning, and typed a response before she could reconsider. How did you get my number? The reply came within seconds. I know everything about you, Ariana. Your birthday. Your favorite color. The fact that you take your coffee with too much sugar and no milk. That you're afraid of thunderstorms but won't admit it. That you haven't had a serious relationship in 3 years because the last man you trusted broke something inside you that hasn't fully healed. I know you because I pay attention. And now that you're mine, even temporarily, I'll know everything else too. Sleep well, Bellissima. Ariana's hands trembled as she read the message a second time, then a third. The presumption was staggering, the invasion of privacy inexcusable. She should have been furious, should have called him immediately and demanded boundaries. Instead, she lay awake for hours, the ring heavy on her finger, and wondered what she'd unleashed by agreeing to 6 weeks. Because Raphael Santini didn't do anything carelessly. And she was beginning to suspect she'd never been part of a simple arrangement at all. The Moretti estate made the Santini home look modest by comparison, which Ariana suspected was precisely the point. Old money didn't just whisper in Italy. It sang opera from gilded balconies while lesser fortunes applauded from below. Raphael's hand rested against her lower back as they entered, his touch possessive enough to be noticed, but controlled enough to remain appropriate. She wore a dress he'd sent to her hotel that afternoon, midnight blue silk that fit perfectly despite him never asking her size, and felt simultaneously beautiful and owned. Smile, Raphael murmured against her ear as their hosts approached. The Morettis can smell fear like sharks smell blood. Ariana's smile came naturally, though whether from his instruction or the warm pressure of his breath against her skin, she couldn't say. Giulia Moretti descended upon them with the enthusiasm of someone who'd been starved for gossip and finally found a feast. She was 60, elegant, and wielded social power with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. Raphael, finally. Giulia kissed both his cheeks, then turned her assessment on Ariana with eyes that missed nothing. And this must be the mysterious fiancé. My dear, you're even lovelier than the rumors suggested. Though I must confess, I'm devastated Raphael kept you hidden for so long. We preferred privacy, Raphael said smoothly, his arm sliding fully around Ariana's waist. You know how I value discretion, Giulia. Discretion is for people with something to hide. Giulia's smile sharpened. But come, dinner is ready. We have so much to discuss. The dining room could have hosted a small wedding. The crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across a table set for 12, though only 6 places were occupied. Besides Giulia and her husband, a quiet man named Tommaso, who seemed content to let his wife dominate conversation, there was their son Luca, a business associate Ariana didn't catch the name of, and a woman introduced as Luca's friend who looked at Raphael with barely concealed hunger. Ariana recognized the setup immediately. This wasn't just dinner. It was an examination disguised as hospitality. The first course arrived with synchronized precision, and Giulia wasted no time beginning her interrogation. So, Ariana, Raphael mentioned you work in art authentication. How fascinating. Though I imagine it's quite competitive. How did you manage to land the Santini collection as a client? The question seemed innocent, but carried implications about competence versus connections. Ariana met Giulia's gaze steadily. The firm I work for has a reputation for expertise in Italian Renaissance pieces. When questions arose about the Caravaggio's provenance, they recommended me specifically because of my dissertation on early Baroque authentication techniques. A dissertation. So you're educated. Giulia made it sound like a minor character flaw. How refreshing. Though I suppose that's what attracted Raphael. He's always appreciated intellectual pursuits. The pause before intellectual suggested Giulia found the concept amusing rather than admirable. Raphael's hand found Ariana's beneath the table, his fingers lacing with hers in a gesture that looked casual but felt like silent support. Ariana attracted me because she's brilliant, beautiful, and entirely unimpressed by wealth or status. Qualities I find infinitely more valuable than social pedigree. The rebuke was gentle but unmistakable, and Julia's smile tightened fractionally. Of course. True love conquers all, doesn't it? Though I must say, the engagement does seem rather sudden. You've known each other how long? 2 months, Ariana replied, remembering the story Raphael had constructed. Though it feels longer. Sometimes you just know. How romantic. Lucas spoke for the first time, his tone suggesting he found nothing romantic about it whatsoever. And the proposal, Raphael mentioned it was private. No witnesses, no family present. That must have been disappointing for Elena. Raphael's grip on Ariana's hand tightened almost imperceptibly. My mother understood that some moments are meant to be intimate. She was thrilled when we told her. I'm sure. Julia sipped her wine, with deliberate slowness. Though I wonder, Ariana, if you're prepared for what marriage to Raphael truly entails. The expectations, the scrutiny, the responsibilities that come with the Santini name. It was barely veiled condescension, implying Ariana was out of her depth. Before she could respond, Raphael spoke with quiet authority that made everyone at the table go still. Ariana is prepared for whatever our life together requires. And anyone who questions her suitability answers to me personally. The temperature in the room dropped several degrees. Julia's expression smoothed into careful neutrality, recognizing she'd pushed too far. Of course, Raphael. I meant no offense. I'm simply protective of you. You know how I think of you almost as another son. The rest of dinner proceeded with forced pleasantness, though Ariana felt the undercurrents of tension running beneath every polite exchange. Luca watched her with calculation that made her skin crawl. His friend, Valentina, spent the meal attempting to engage Raphael in conversation about shared memories, each anecdote carefully designed to remind everyone of history Ariana couldn't share. By dessert, Ariana's head throbbed with the effort of maintaining her composure. Then Valentina made her move. Raphael, do you remember that summer in Portofino? When we sailed to that hidden cove and spent the entire day swimming? She laughed, light and intimate. You were so sunburned you couldn't wear a shirt for 3 days. Raphael's expression remained politely neutral. I remember the sunburn. The company less so. Valentina's smile faltered, but she pressed forward. We should recreate that trip sometime. For old time's sake. I'm afraid my sailing schedule is permanently booked. Raphael lifted Ariana's hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles while maintaining eye contact with Valentina. My fiancé has claimed all my free time, and I have no interest in revisiting the past when my future is so much more compelling. The dismissal was absolute, and Ariana felt heat flood her cheeks, not from embarrassment, but from the intensity in Raphael's gaze as he said it. He was performing for their audience, she reminded herself. Playing the devoted fiancé because the arrangement required it. But his eyes suggested something deeper, darker, infinitely more dangerous. They left shortly after dessert, Raphael citing early morning obligations. As they walked to the car, his hand never left her back, and Ariana felt him vibrating with barely controlled tension. The moment the car door closed, isolating them in the back seat, Raphael exhaled slowly. I apologize for that. For what? Julia's hostility. Valentina's performance. Subjecting you to vultures disguised as dinner guests. He turned to face her, and in the dim interior lighting, his features looked carved from shadow and determination. They were testing you, seeing if you'd crack under pressure. I noticed. Ariana touched the ring on her finger unconsciously. Why does Julia hate me? She doesn't even know me. She hates that you exist. Julia had plans for me to marry Valentina, merge our families, consolidate power. Your presence destroys that scheme. Raphael's jaw tightened. And Luca has been circling for years, trying to find weaknesses in our operations he can exploit. He'll see you as exactly that. The casual mention of business operations sent a chill down Ariana's spine. What exactly does your family do, Raphael? And please don't tell me it's just commercial real estate. He studied her for a long moment, seeming to weigh his response. We manage multiple interests. Some legal, some operating in gray areas, some that cross lines I won't insult you by pretending don't exist. I inherited an empire built on both legitimate business and less savory foundations. I've been working to transition toward legitimacy, but that process takes time and makes enemies of people who prefer the old ways. It was the most honest he'd been with her, and Ariana appreciated the lack of comfortable lies. Am I in danger because of this arrangement? You're protected, Raphael said flatly. The security team Marco mentioned is permanent as long as you're associated with me. No one touches what's mine. I'm not yours, Ariana said quietly. Not really. Raphael leaned closer, and she caught his scent again, cedar, bergamot, and something that was purely him. For 6 weeks, you are. And during those 6 weeks, Ariana, I protect what's mine with everything I have. The possessiveness should have frightened her. Instead, it made her pulse race for entirely different reasons. When they reached her hotel, Raphael walked her to her room despite her protests. At her door, he caught her hand before she could unlock it. Tomorrow night, we're attending the opera. La Scala, my family maintains a box there. Formal dress, more scrutiny, more performance. His thumb traced across her knuckles. Are you managing? This is more intense than you expected. Ariana met his eyes, those dark depths that seemed to see through every defense she constructed. I agreed to 6 weeks. I keep my commitments. Even when they're harder than anticipated? Especially then. Something fierce flashed across Raphael's face, and before Ariana could process it, he pulled her closer. Not kissing her, but holding her against him with her head tucked beneath his chin, his heartbeat steady against her ear. You're stronger than you know, he murmured into her hair. And far more valuable than you believe. Then he released her, stepping back with visible effort. Sleep well, Bellissima. I'll send a car at 7. He was gone before Ariana could respond, leaving her standing in the hallway with her heart racing and his warmth still lingering on her skin. Inside her room, she found another package waiting. This dress was forest green velvet, fitted and elegant, with a note in Raphael's angular script. For tomorrow. Don't argue.
R.
Ariana hung the dress carefully, then sat on her bed and stared at the ring on her finger until exhaustion finally dragged her toward sleep. She dreamed of dark eyes and possessive hands, of promises whispered in Italian she didn't understand but felt in her bones. The opera was spectacular and terrifying in equal measure. La Scala's opulence made previous venues seem pedestrian, and the Santini box provided perfect visibility for both the stage and the audience, which meant everyone could see them as clearly as they saw the performance. Raphael kept her close throughout, his attention divided between the opera and quiet observations that made her laugh despite the formal setting. He knew the story of Tosca intimately and narrated certain moments with dry commentary that transformed tragedy into something almost absurd. Now she'll throw herself from the ramparts, he whispered during the final act. Very dramatic. Personally, I've always thought she could have just taken the stairs. Ariana bit her lip to suppress her smile. That would ruin the whole opera. Efficiency often does. His hand covered hers on the armrest between their seats, and Ariana felt the contact like electricity. Intermission brought the inevitable social gauntlet. People approached their box with congratulations that felt like interrogations, and Ariana learned to navigate the careful dance of revealing just enough to seem genuine while protecting the fabrication's core. An older woman with kind eyes and expensive jewelry studied Ariana thoughtfully. You have an honest face, dear. Rare in our circles. I hope Raphael appreciates that. I do, Raphael interjected smoothly, his arms sliding around Ariana's shoulders. More than I can express. After the woman departed, Ariana glanced up at him. Do I really have an honest face? Devastatingly. Raphael's expression was unreadable. It's one of many things that make you dangerous. Dangerous to whom? He didn't answer, but his eyes held something that made her breath catch. The second half of the opera passed in a haze of beautiful music and Raphael's proximity. By the final scene, Ariana had stopped pretending. She wasn't hyper-aware of every point where they touched, every breath he took, the way his fingers traced absent patterns against her shoulder. When Tosca finally threw herself from the ramparts and the curtain fell, Ariana felt oddly devastated by the tragedy despite Raphael's earlier mockery. "It's just a story," he said softly, noticing her expression. "They'll all be back tomorrow night playing the same parts." "I know. But in this moment, it's real to them. That's what makes it beautiful." Raphael studied her face with an intensity that felt almost physical. "You believe in the performance even when you know it's not real. Sometimes the performance is the only real thing." Ariana met his gaze steadily. The emotions it creates, the connection it builds, those are genuine even when the circumstances are fabricated. Something shifted in Raphael's expression, a crack in his careful control. "Ariana." But before he could finish, someone appeared in their box doorway. A man Ariana didn't recognize, though Raphael's entire body went rigid beside her. "Santini. Didn't expect to see you here tonight." The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. "And with such lovely company. You'll have to introduce me." "No, I won't." Raphael's tone could have flash-frozen water. "Leave, Dante." Dante's smile sharpened. "Still holding grudges? I thought we'd moved past old disagreements." "We haven't. We won't. Leave before I have security remove you." The threat was delivered with perfect calm, but Ariana felt the violence simmering beneath Raphael's composed exterior. Dante seemed to sense it too, because his smile faltered fractionally. "Give my regards to your mother," Dante said, then disappeared. Raphael remained tense, his breathing controlled but elevated. Ariana touched his arm carefully.
Who was that?
"Someone who should know better than to approach me." Raphael's jaw worked, then he seemed to make a conscious effort to relax. "We're leaving." He guided her out through private corridors, avoiding the main exits and the crowds. The car was waiting, and Raphael gave terse instructions to the driver before settling beside her in tense silence. "Raphael, what's wrong?" "Dante represents interests that oppose my family's. His presence tonight wasn't coincidental. He wanted to see you, to assess whether you're actually important to me or just convenient fiction." Raphael's hand found hers, gripping tightly. "Which means people are paying attention. Closer attention than I anticipated." Fear flickered through Ariana's chest. "Should I be worried?"
No.
The word was absolute, final. "You should never worry because I'll handle everything. But, Ariana, I need you to understand something." He turned to face her fully, and the raw intensity in his expression made her breath catch. "When I told you that you were mine for 6 weeks, I meant it as arrangement. Protection in exchange for performance. But somewhere between that first lie at the gala and now, something changed." His hand lifted to cup her face, thumb brushing across her cheekbone. "I don't want this to be temporary anymore." Ariana's heart stopped. "What?" "I want you. Not as arrangement or convenience or solution to my mother's schemes. I want you the way a man wants a woman he can't stop thinking about. The way someone wants the thing that makes everything else irrelevant." Raphael's voice had dropped to something raw, almost desperate. "Tell me I'm insane. Tell me I'm reading this wrong, and you feel nothing." She should have reminded him this was fake, temporary, built on lies and social necessity. But Ariana couldn't force the words past her lips because they would have been the biggest lie of all. "I don't feel nothing," she whispered. Raphael's control shattered. He kissed her with none of the measured precision of their New Year's kiss. This was hunger unleashed, possession claimed, months of wanting compressed into desperate contact. His hands cradled her face, tangled in her hair, pulled her closer until no space existed between them. Ariana kissed him back with equal desperation, her fingers curling into his shirt, her body arching toward his. Every rational thought evaporated under the onslaught of sensation and need. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Raphael pressed his forehead against hers. "Come home with me. Not to the estate, my apartment in the city. Just us, no performance, no lies. Please." It was the please that destroyed her. Raphael Santini, who commanded empires and never asked for anything, was begging. Yes, Ariana breathed. The drive to his apartment passed in electric silence, their hands clasped between them, anticipation building with each passing block. Raphael's residence occupied the penthouse of a building in Milan's historic center. All modern luxury contrasted against ancient architecture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the illuminated Duomo. But Ariana barely registered the stunning space because the moment the door closed behind them, Raphael was kissing her again. Slower this time, but no less intense, walking her backward until her shoulders hit the wall. His mouth traced along her jaw, down her throat, and Ariana's head fell back with a gasp as his teeth grazed her pulse point. "Tell me to stop," Raphael murmured against her skin. "Tell me this is too fast, too much, and I will." "Don't stop," Ariana whispered, her hands sliding beneath his jacket to push it off his shoulders. "Don't you dare stop." What followed was a blur of desperate hands and whispered promises, clothing discarded between kisses, Raphael lifting her effortlessly and carrying her to his bedroom where enormous windows framed the city lights like a painting. He laid her down with reverent care that contradicted his earlier desperation, and when he settled beside her, his touch gentled to something that made her chest ache. "Beautiful," he whispered, tracing patterns across her skin. "So damn beautiful." They came together with aching slowness, Raphael watching her face with dark intensity, murmuring Italian endearments she didn't understand but felt in her soul. And when pleasure finally crested, dragging them both under, Ariana clung to him and understood with terrifying clarity. This was no longer an arrangement. She'd fallen completely, irrevocably in love with Raphael Santini. And she had no idea if he felt the same or if she'd just made a catastrophic mistake. Afterward, Raphael held her against his chest, his heartbeat gradually slowing beneath her ear. His fingers traced lazy patterns on her shoulder, and the silence between them felt both comfortable and weighted with unspoken questions. "Stay," he said finally. "Not just tonight. Move into the estate. Stop pretending this is temporary when we both know it isn't anymore." Ariana's breath caught. "Raphael, we've known each other less than 2 weeks. That's insane. I've built an empire on calculated risks and careful planning. This is the first genuinely insane thing I've done in years." He shifted to look down at her, his expression fierce. "And I don't care. I want you here, with me, where I can see you and protect you and stop pretending I'm capable of letting you go in 6 weeks." "What if this burns out?" Ariana asked quietly. "What if it's just intensity and proximity and—" "It won't." Raphael's certainty was absolute. "I don't do temporary, Ariana. I don't do halfway. When I commit to something, I commit completely. And I'm committing to you." Tears pricked Ariana's eyes, and she hated the vulnerability, but couldn't suppress it. "I'm scared. This world you live in, the danger, the scrutiny. I don't know if I'm strong enough." "You're stronger than you know," Raphael repeated, echoing his earlier words. "And you won't face any of it alone. Whatever comes, we handle it together." Ariana looked up at him, at this complicated, intense, impossible man who'd somehow become essential in less than 2 weeks, and made a decision that felt both reckless and inevitable. Okay, I'll move to the estate. We'll try this, really try, not just performance." She touched his face, feeling stubble rough beneath her palm. "But Raphael, you have to be honest with me. About your business, about the danger, about what being with you actually means. No more careful half-truths." He was silent for a long moment, and Ariana saw him weighing transparency against protection, trust against control. Finally, he nodded. "Agreed. Starting now, ask me anything." "Who was Dante? What does he want?" Raphael's expression darkened. "Dante works for the Colombo family. They've been trying to absorb our operations for 3 years, using legal pressure and less legal intimidation. I've been resisting because their methods involve trafficking and exploitation I won't tolerate. Dante appearing tonight was a message. They know about you now, which means they'll try to use you against me." I slid down Ariana's spine. Use me how? Leverage. Threats. Possibly kidnapping if they're desperate enough. Raphael's hand tightened on her hip. Which is why the security team is non-negotiable, and why I need you at the estate where protection is comprehensive. You're telling me people might actually try to kidnap me? Ariana's voice rose slightly. Raphael, this is insane. Maybe we should.
No.
The word was steel. We're not backing away from this because of threats. We're preparing for them, neutralizing them, and continuing forward. Together. His absolute confidence should have been reassuring. Instead, it highlighted how different their worlds were, how accustomed Raphael was to viewing threats as problems to be managed rather than reasons to retreat. But looking at him, at the fierce protectiveness in his eyes and the way he held her like she was infinitely precious, Ariana felt her fear transmute into something else. Determination. Then teach me, she said firmly. If I'm going to be part of your world, I need to understand it. How to recognize danger, who to trust, what to watch for. I won't be a liability, Raphael. Pride flashed across his face, warm and genuine. You could never be a liability. But yes, I'll teach you everything. Starting tomorrow. They fell asleep tangled together, and for the first time in years, Ariana felt utterly safe despite knowing she'd just committed to a life far more dangerous than any she'd imagined. Morning brought reality and complications. Ariana woke to find Raphael already awake, watching her with an intensity that made her self-conscious. Stop staring, she mumbled, pulling the sheet higher.
No.
His smile was slight but genuine. I'm memorizing you like this. Sleep soft and beautiful, and in my bed where you belong. Heat flooded her cheeks. Possessive much? Devastatingly. Raphael leaned down to kiss her, slow and thorough. And you like it?
She did.
God help her, she absolutely did. They had breakfast on his terrace, Raphael dressed in casual clothing that made him look younger and somehow more dangerous, without the armor of formal wear. Over coffee, he laid out what moving to the estate would entail, separate bedroom initially if she wanted space, though his preference was clear. Full access to the house and grounds. Introduction to key staff members. Security protocols she'd need to follow. This feels very real suddenly, Ariana said, her hands wrapped around her coffee cup. It is real. Raphael's gaze held hers steadily. Last night changed things, Ariana. We both know it. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. Raphael glanced at it, and his expression went carefully blank. What's wrong? Dante's family just made a move. They've filed a lawsuit against one of our subsidiaries, completely fabricated charges designed to tie up resources and create negative press. Raphael stood, his entire demeanor shifting to something harder. I need to handle this immediately. Ariana felt him pulling away emotionally even as he leaned down to kiss her forehead. I'll have Marco take you to collect your things from the hotel. Move into the estate today. I'll feel better knowing you're protected there. Raphael, if you need me to wait. I need you safe, he interrupted, his tone brooking no argument. Please, Ariana. Do this for me. She nodded, recognizing the fear beneath his control. Okay, but call me when you can. The moment I can, he promised. Then he was gone, leaving Ariana alone in his beautiful apartment, surrounded by evidence of the life she was choosing, complicated, dangerous, and utterly compelling. Marco arrived within the hour, professional and efficient as always. The drive to her hotel was quiet, but as they pulled up, Ariana noticed the security team Raphael had mentioned. 2 additional cars, for men total, all watching the street with professional alertness. It should have felt suffocating. Instead, it felt like being valued. Packing took less time than expected. She'd been living out of a suitcase anyway. But as Ariana folded her clothes, her phone rang with an unknown number. Hello, Miss Greco. The voice was male, cultured, and utterly unfamiliar. We haven't been formally introduced, but I believe you met my associate Dante last night. My name is Matteo Colombo. Ariana's blood went cold. How did you get this number? I get everything I want, Miss Greco. It's what I do. Matteo's tone remained pleasant, conversational. I'm calling because I think you and I should talk
Privately.
about Raphael and the future you're imagining with him. I have nothing to say to you. That's unfortunate, because I have quite a bit to say to you. Things about Raphael's business practices, his history, the real reasons he's pursuing you. Information that might change your perspective on this relationship. Matteo paused. Meet me for coffee this afternoon. 1 hour, public location, completely safe. Just conversation.
No.
Miss Greco, I strongly suggest you reconsider. Because the alternative, you learning these truths the hard way, would be much less pleasant for everyone involved. The implied threat made Ariana's hands shake. Is that a threat? It's a courtesy. 2 o'clock, Café Verdi in the Brera district. Come alone, or don't come at all. But know that refusing this conversation won't make the truth disappear. It will just make discovering it more painful. The line went dead. Ariana stood frozen, her phone clutched in trembling hands. She should call Raphael immediately, tell him about Matteo's contact. But something in the man's words nagged at her. The confidence, the suggestion that he knew things about Raphael she didn't. Raphael had promised honesty, had promised to tell her everything. But had he? Or were there still secrets, still carefully constructed lies beneath the passion and promises? She looked at the ring on her finger, the symbol of a relationship built on fabrication that had somehow become devastatingly real. At least, real for her. But what if Raphael was still performing? What if his intensity was just another form of control, another way of managing threats? What if she was falling for a man who'd never stopped lying? Ariana made a decision that was either brave or catastrophically stupid. She called Marco. I need to make a stop before going to the estate. Café Verdi in Brera. Shouldn't take long. Miss Greco, if this isn't on the approved schedule. Please, Marco. It's important. A long pause then. I'll need to inform Mr. Santini. After, Ariana said quickly. Tell him after. If I'm making a mistake, I need to make it myself. Please. Another pause, longer this time. Finally, Marco sighed. 20 minutes only. And the security team comes inside with you. It was the best she'd get. Thank you. Café Verdi was exactly as described, public, busy, the kind of place where violence would be impossible without witnesses. Matteo sat at a corner table, distinguished and dangerous in equal measure, and rose when Ariana approached. Miss Greco, thank you for coming. Please sit. Ariana remained standing, her security team positioned strategically nearby. You have 10 minutes. Talk. Matteo's smile suggested he found her bravado amusing.
Direct. I appreciate that.
Very well. Let's discuss Raphael Santini and the empire he's building on your back. Meaning Raphael's transition to legitimacy requires a specific image. Respectability, stability, the appearance of normalcy. A fiancé who's educated, beautiful, and completely untainted by his world provides exactly that. Matteo sipped his espresso calmly. You're not his love story, Miss Greco. You're his PR strategy. The words hit like physical blows, but Ariana kept her expression neutral. You're lying. Am I? Then explain why he investigated you thoroughly before the gala, your background, your relationships, your financial situation. Why he confirmed you had no family connections to organized crime, no scandals that could surface later. He chose you, Miss Greco, like selecting the perfect prop for a performance. Ariana's stomach churned, but she forced herself to think critically. Even if that were true, what's your agenda in telling me? This isn't kindness. No, it's pragmatism. Matteo leaned back in his chair. Raphael's playing a dangerous game, trying to legitimize while maintaining power. If he succeeds, he becomes untouchable. But if his perfect image cracks, say, through a very public broken engagement, the scrutiny could destroy everything he's built. Understanding crystallized with sickening clarity. You want me to leave him? Publicly, dramatically. I want you to see the truth and make an informed decision. Raphael Santini is using you. He may even believe he cares for you. His capacity for self-deception is remarkable, but the foundation is manipulation. You deserve better than being a prop in someone else's power play. Mateo stood, dropping cash on the table. Consider it, Miss Greco. Really consider whether a man who built your entire relationship on lies can be trusted with your heart. I think you'll find the answer disappointing. He left before Ariana could respond, disappearing into the afternoon crowd with practiced ease. Ariana stood frozen, her mind racing. Mateo's words aligned too perfectly with her fears, with the nagging sense that Raphael's intensity had developed too quickly, too completely. What if it was all calculation? What if she was just another strategic move in a game she didn't understand? Her phone buzzed. Raphael. Marco told me where you are. What's happening? Are you safe? Another message followed immediately. Ariana, answer me.
Please.
She stared at the messages, at the concern apparent even in text, and felt torn between trust and terror. Raphael had promised honesty, but promises from a man who'd built their entire relationship on fabrication felt dangerously unstable. Ariana typed a response with shaking hands. I'm fine. Need some time to think. I'll come to the estate tonight. The reply came within seconds. What happened? Did someone threaten you? I'm coming to you now.
No.
I just need space. Please respect that. A long pause, then. Okay. But Ariana, whatever you're thinking, whatever someone told you, let me explain. Don't make decisions based on incomplete information. The message proved Mateo right about one thing. Raphael knew she'd spoken to someone, which meant he'd anticipated this exact scenario, had probably already prepared his counterargument. Or it meant he genuinely cared and was terrified of losing her. Ariana didn't know which truth to believe anymore. She returned to the estate late that afternoon, her belongings delivered by Marco, while her thoughts churned in endless circles. The guest room she'd been assigned was beautiful, overlooking the gardens Raphael had mentioned in their fabricated proposal story, but felt like a cage despite the luxury. Elena found her there an hour later, appearing in the doorway with maternal concern that seemed genuine. Raphael is in meetings but told me you'd arrived. Are you all right, dear? You look upset. Ariana almost laughed. I met with Mateo Colombo this afternoon. He had interesting theories about your son's motivations. Elena's expression shifted to something fierce.
That bastard.
What did he say? That Raphael investigated me before the gala. That I'm a carefully selected prop for his legitimization strategy. That none of this, Ariana gestured vaguely, is real. And you believe him? Elena's voice sharpened. A man whose family profits from trafficking and exploitation, who would say anything to damage Raphael? I don't know what I believe anymore, Ariana admitted quietly. Did Raphael investigate me? Elena was silent for a long moment, then sighed.
Yes.
He did. The confirmation felt like drowning. So Mateo was telling the truth. He was telling facts without context, which is its own form of lie. Elena moved into the room, settling beside Ariana on the bed. Yes, Raphael investigated you. He investigates everyone who enters our world because trust is earned, not given. But the investigation came after he met you, not before. Ariana frowned. What do you mean? Raphael saw you at a gallery opening 3 months before the gala. You were examining a Titian with such focus you didn't notice anyone around you. He watched you for 20 minutes, completely captivated, then approached to ask your opinion. You told him the painting was a magnificent forgery and explained exactly why in terms that impressed him thoroughly. You had no idea who he was, just spoke with passionate expertise about something you loved. The memory surfaced slowly. Ariana did remember that conversation, remembered the handsome stranger who'd listened with genuine interest. But she'd never connected him to Raphael Santini because the formal, controlled man at the gala had seemed completely different. That was Raphael? She whispered. That was my son seeing something real in a world of performance. He tried to find you afterward but only knew your first name. When your firm submitted credentials for the Caravaggio authentication, he recognized your name immediately. The investigation came then not to select a prop, but to understand if you were as genuine as you'd seemed. When it confirmed you were, he told me he'd found the woman he wanted to marry. Elena's eyes held absolute conviction. I asked you to pose as his fiancé because Raphael was too honorable to pursue you aggressively while you were working for us. I gave him permission, created circumstances that forced proximity. The lie was mine, Ariana. But his feelings? Those are devastatingly real. Tears spilled down Ariana.